On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use, welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 16, created May 12th, 2022. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota, Neil on the East Coast, and our guest tonight, Chris in Madison. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, everyone. I am drinking white wine tonight, and it's not just because of the result of the Arsenal's match, but I'm thinking about a Super Bowl season, and so I'm having the Charles Woodson Intercept tonight.
Wow, fancy. Chris, are you having anything?
Yep, I have the Gruziski, which is a smoked wheat ale from the East End Brewing Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Nice. So I'm having a Hendrick's Neptunia gin and tonic on this hot evening in Minnesota.
And I'm under the weather. I just need something for my voice. I've got a hot Irish coffee. That'll do wonders for you, right? You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And now just the audio is available on Spotify and Anchor by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, it happened tonight, you guys. It was live. It's already happened, and we're going to talk about it. It's the 2022 NFL schedule. We're going to highlight the London game, the Mike McCarthy return game, talk a bit about those gold package games, and an update on our tailgating for the home games, and maybe just a brief Packer history at the end. But let's kind of go around the room there. Neil, I know you were excited about the London game, and I think at one point you said you were waiting for the schedule to come out so you could plan a trip with a soccer game. Have you had enough time to look at it, and what's your plan?
Well, so I don't have the soccer schedule, and that's kind of a limiting factor. I mean, I said, I guess when we talked about this the first time, that there's a part of me, because they are playing it at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the shithole, it's only a 60,000 capacity stadium. And so I think there's something to be said for allowing European fans to go without too many Packers fans trying to intrude in. I mean, I go to London frequently enough, so I don't have a special need to watch the Packers there. But you know, of all the opponents we could have in London, certainly the Giants is about as friendly as it could be. You know, I don't see them getting a whole lot better. They can't stay quite as bad in theory, but they've defied expectations in that regard for quite a while. You know, having the softest game that we can get, or one of the softest games on our schedule, is certainly, I think, an advantage when you throw in all of the difficulties that are associated with travel. And then we've got the added bonus that we play the Jets the week afterwards, so a soft landing on the backside as well. And so I think as far as the timing of the London game is concerned, I feel pretty good compared to the other potential opponents that we could have, or opponents on the way back. So I'm overall pleased with that. You know, the London weather will be good in October, so we've got everything in our favor for doing well and winning in the shithole.
Game is on October 9th, and even I understand where you're going with that, not taking a ticket away from the European fans, because we know a lot of people there in England, Scotland, Ireland, even France, that, you know, they support the team and they come around when they can, but this is huge for them, not wanting to take away a ticket there. But is there a possibility that it makes sense to just go to be in the city? Is there an electricity, just like a home game, that's going to go with it?
London's a big city. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I think you could go to the fan events that are going to be there beforehand, but I don't know that fan events are enough for me to want to go specifically for that time period. I mean, it's obviously a great time to travel. You know, it's 3 weeks before the Bills game, so that's probably a reasonable gap as far as doing so. But by the same token, I think I'm probably going to take a pass on this one. And you know, when I go see Arsenal, I'm going to make sure that I see a couple of games in the season.
Now, Jeff, watching from home, if you stay at home, that London game means you actually have to be awake and out of bed by about 8 o'clock in the morning. Can you handle that?
I know it's gonna, crimp my getting up at the crack of noon, John. So
I know it does. We know you well, Jeffrey.
No, it is, the nice thing about that. So one of the things, living in Minnesota, I always, and I'm too cheap to get the NFL Sunday package. So anyway, so one of the first things that I always do when the schedules come out, which I have not yet done, is after consulting the Packer schedule, I always look at the Viking schedule. So, and try and figure out, okay, what, am I going to have to go to, somebody, either go to a bar, go, ask a favor of viewing a game via the the cooler, as has been done before. But nonetheless, so basically when I can enjoy the Packers from the comfort of my home. They obviously have a bunch of national games this year, another 5, the maximum I'm on again. But hoping that it kind of offsets so that they put I can watch most of the Packer games from the comfort of my home.
Well, it's an NFL Network game, so you shouldn't have trouble getting
Oh,
it.
for that, yeah, that'll be
Obviously,
fine. Yeah, there won't be any conflict. But it's the typically the noon games, when the Vikings play at noon, the Packers play at noon. They don't show the Packers, so like I said, I have to seek
Kind of
other
funny
ways.
how they do that in the home market, right?
Yeah, funny that.
Chris, have you been to London? Did you want to go there for the game?
I have not been to London before, so I do kind of want to get over there and travel and see London, and I'd love to watch the Packers over there and take in the whole London experience with the Packers. I believe that I might be in Africa and coming back through around that time that weekend, so I might just have to make a stop in London.
Chris, now you're
my team.
Chris, now you're tempting me, because I certainly going to travel with you to a game is something that's worthwhile. So,
and like Neil said, it's only a 60,000 seat stadium. I mean, as soon as it was announced, 500,000 people were online saying, I'm going to that game. I'm going to that game. They're not going to be playing in Africa. So I don't know what you're doing there, my friend.
Well, I do have some nonprofit work that I do over there. So we're going to do some travel to Ethiopia, and Uganda for a couple of weeks. Last week in September and first week in October. So coming right back through that weekend. So it could be a good cap to an Africa trip.
Chris, could you describe what the charity work is that you do, specifically the different projects that you've been involved in, and also how people could donate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I adopted a son from Ethiopia back in 2009, and it was really my first experience in Africa, and seeing just the challenges that they had with getting clean water each day was the thing that really grabbed my attention and our travel group's attention. There were 10 other families from around the country that were adopting children from Ethiopia, and we all kind of came together and said, we want to start funding water wells for people in Africa. So I started to, we as a group, we were able to fund a couple of water wells in Ethiopia. And then to keep it going, to sustain what we were doing, I started a 5K run here in Madison, Wisconsin called Strides for Africa. We're going to be entering I believe our 13th year this year. And we just had a simple goal to raise enough for one water well each year. We're a small nonprofit. I do it completely on the side. And at this point, we're up to about 35 wells that we've put all over different parts of Africa. So mostly in Liberia, but also in my son's home country of Ethiopia. And then we've spread out to some other countries as well. And those are all great experiences to go over there. And it's quite an experience to go to a remote village and see what clean water means to them. So it's been, just a blessing to have these experiences in my life. And so, yeah, that's what I've gotten into ever since we adopted Miles. It's been,
and how can people donate to Strides for Africa?
Sure, we have a website, so it's www.stridesforafrica. So Strides, STRIDES, Africa.org.
So what does it take monetarily US to build one well?
Yeah, we've been knocking them off for a while in Liberia at about $3,500. So we have a great team that we've worked with for a long time over there, and they have very trustworthy. They do great work. And in fact, I'm expecting to see photos from a couple of recently completed wells tomorrow morning. And so we put $3,200 towards the well, and then we save $300 and we put it into what we call a sustainability fund for maintenance on those wells, for them to continue to monitor those wells and just kind of keep the price where it's at. We have inflation issues here in the United States. It's even worse in Africa. They were a little bit more dependent on some of the oil coming out of Russia. And there are black markets that are popping up in different parts to get gas, and it's not a a pretty thing. It's really difficult to travel around Africa right now. I understand.
Thank you for that. I did not know that. So appreciate that. And so it's, it's certainly a blessing to be able to, go to your faucet, turn it on, and we have clean water. So thank you.
Absolutely.
You said there's a 5K race with that. Where do you do that? When is that going to be?
So we have that the third Saturday in August in Madison each year. And that will be on August 20th this year. And we kick off a festival in Madison called Africa Fest. So we have our run walk, which is, like I said, a 5K, but we do have a challenge relay where we go down to the Yahara River, which is the connection point between Lake Mendota and Lake Monona in Madison. And people take a 5-gallon jerry can down there, and then they fill up that jerry can as much as they want, and they bring that back to the start line. And, it's just kind of an experience for, what people in Africa are doing, taking these jerry cans, 1.5, 2 miles to go fetch their water, and then have to carry that back to their homes. So, it's kind of neat to be able to experience, what they experience each day, and really appreciate, what these people that are a lot more malnourished than us are trying to track down, and just to get dirty water back to their homes. We're lucky to turn on a faucet with clean water each and every day.
We'll be in preseason football at that time, so we'll be sure to bring it up again when August rolls around. So that sounds great. I hope you have a great trip with that. As far as trips go, though, talking about that London game, I will say that I secretly was hoping that the London game was going to be against the Cowboys, just because I don't want Dallas fans in Green Bay. I just don't need the Dallas fans. And then it never occurred to me that the Dallas game, being a home game for Green Bay, is Mike McCarthy's return. So November 13th, Dallas coming to Green Bay. We were kind of hoping this past postseason, Dallas, would have brought Mike McCarthy into Green Bay in the postseason. It did not work out the way we were hoping, but we'll get it here in the regular season. Jeff, do you think that's going to be a big deal? Compare that to like Favre returning, McCarthy returning. What do you think is going to be, what's it going to be like? Are people going to cheer him, boo him?
No, I think he will get a polite golf clap. I think that he took the team to the Super Bowl, right? So he's not a bad guy. I don't think. I think that he, he'll come into town. I think the Packer fans appreciate what he was able to do, to guide the franchise for what, a decade and a half almost. Yeah, they had great success with him. He doesn't seem like a bad guy, so I think he'll get an appropriate, golf clap, some cheers. I don't think he'll get booed. I mean, the only booing will be because he, is with the Cowboys. So, but I think he'll get a proper some respect from the fans.
I think in the end, what we're all hoping is that we get a Mike McCarthy's playoff performance from the Cowboys when they come here.
Yes,
right? That's really the ideal situation.
Yes. Or a coaching, like, God forbid they get ahead, that they'll play the Cowboys will play not to lose, and then they'll lose.
And then they'll have some clock management issues at the end of the game.
Exactly. And like they won't have any timeouts left.
And we're talking about a game that's really in week 10 and is so far off. To try to make a prediction of what's going to happen in that game is hard. But you're right, Neil. I mean, there's history or consistency or inconsistency in the way things are done. I'm still
amazed that Mike McCarthy was able to keep his job in Dallas. I mean, I think there's a component of Jerry Jones realizing he can't fire somebody every single year, but I can't claim that he's bathed himself in glory as far as his tenure as the Cowboys coach. And
and the Cowboys, I mean, McCarthy notwithstanding, remember the Cowboys are one of the they don't have a playoff win in like decades. So it's really, you think, oh, okay, the Cowboys generally are perennial winners. Not so much. So I think, like I said, the tricky part, though, a little bit of the intangible for the Packers is that they will not have a bye by week 10. They will, it's going to be pretty grueling. So with the way the schedule is panning out here. So, they might just be freaking tired. And so hopefully they will be able to bring their best game. And
Jeff, I mean, continuing on that. So I said that I'm happy that we're playing the Jets when we come back from London, but then, we get back from London, we have the Jets then at Washington, at the Bills, at the Lions, and then Cowboys, right? It's essentially sort of like 5 road games in a 6-game span, or 4 road games plus the Cowboys in a 6-game span. And so not ideal as far as, keeping us fresh and keeping us ready
in the middle of the season too. It's not like that's at the beginning or after a bye or anything of the sort.
Yeah, and then you have 2 games, really close proximity to each other when we do return home. So you have the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday afternoon game, and then you're turning right around and you have a Thursday night game against the Titans. So, fortunately they're not traveling on the road again for that Thursday nighter. But, it'll be quite a stretch of, before we're even to the bye week yet. The bye week's, still another few weeks off in week 14.
Right. And you look at that Titans game too, right? I mean, that's a perfect game for a team that is driven by battering rams, right? As the Titans are, right? I mean, this is a situation where everyone's going to be playing a little bit tired. And if you've got the ability to pound the rock, you probably have an advantage in that Thursday night game.
So are you saying Derrick Henry will be actually healthy then?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter who they have, though. They're going to, run however many yards every single game. So,
yeah. Well, hopefully the elements will work to our favor at that point. You could get some pretty crappy weather in Green Bay in mid-November. So, hopefully it'll be sloppy and.
Well, it's a tough stretch of the schedule starting October 23rd. Yeah, 3 road games.
Against good teams.
The game in Washington is a noon game. Then you're in Buffalo for a Sunday night matchup, and then at Detroit. And then coming back here, Dallas and Tennessee, like you said, back to back like that. That's 5 games there that I think we're going to talk about that section of the schedule for quite a bit during the season, because that bye week then doesn't come until week 14 after the second time we play Chicago. And you're looking at December 11th. Yeah. When that bye week comes along, that seems like forever. I mean, there was a time where December 11th was a playoff game.
Yeah. I remember mid to late October was the bye week, and that's clearly not the case this year. So we could talk about that too, that the Packers did not, elect. It's interesting that they kind of rolled the dice a little bit with the NFL by not electing to have a bye week after the London game.
Yeah.
So kind of getting the right of first refusal, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. So I don't know if the league said, oh, okay.
Yeah, I see the advantage of putting the bye later in the season. The other thing I just noticed too is for the home games. I mean, remember when they were all noon games on Sunday? We don't have that again. Just like last year, we had 1 noon game on a Sunday, and then now coming up this year, the Jets in week 6 is the only Sunday home game that is at noon. There are some road games there that are at noon, but yeah, that's the only Sunday home game. Kind of changes how we tailgate on those Sundays, right? You got to get there real early, depending on where you're driving from. The other thing too to look at is the gold package. We still have green package games and gold package games. Traditionally, it's been the 2nd and 5th home games, and if you look at the way the Packers on their Twitter page, the schedule they posted, they color code usually the home game and the away game. They actually have that London game color coded like it's an away game, which technically it is, but it's one of their home games.
Actually, their 9th home game this year.
Yeah. So the way they count it, the second home game is the Patriots on October 2nd, and that's a 3:25 matchup. And then the other home game then is that Tennessee Titans game. Now that's a Thursday nighter at 7:15. So that gold package has always been the Milwaukee ticket holders. Is that going to affect that crowd trying to come in on a Thursday night, getting all the Milwaukee ticket holders?
I think it has to, right? I mean, there's actually a history of that being an issue for Sunday night games and Monday night games, especially being problematic as far as the Milwaukee ticket holders. And I absolutely see that being an issue. I mean, Chris, you drive up for a lot of the home games. And just going to Madison, it makes an impact as far as if it's a Sunday night game or Monday night game, you're just far less likely to make it up. And, that means you're more likely to sell your tickets. And, selling tickets sometimes works out well in Green Bay, and sometimes it leads to a raucous crowd, but sometimes it just leads to a flatter crowd and a less knowledgeable crowd.
Or a visiting crowd.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that with the Patriots or the Titans, at least. But
I
There's
think
so many
early years
games.
when we had season tickets back, 2001, 2002, it was pretty easy to get friends to come up from Madison to go to a Sunday night game or a Monday night game. It was just kind of a fun thing. But now, as we get 20 years into having these season tickets, I'm literally, dragging people along and almost paying them to come with me to go up to a Packer game, especially December on a Sunday night or a Monday night. It can be a challenge to get people to go up with me for some of those contests.
Well, that was the question I wanted to ask. And for Chris, both you and Neil, because you have season tickets, the resale value on these tickets isn't what it used to be either. I mean, people made a lot of money in the 90s selling their Packer tickets because, we finally had a winning team. We had Brett Favre in town, but it just feels like the last few years, by few, I mean about 10 years, being able to buy secondary market tickets and then trying to get yours sold, the flow of money, it's I think reasonable to the buyer, and it's not too reasonable for the sellers. You guys don't get as much off of your investment, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Neil's mom, my aunt, takes care a lot of the sales. I'm not sure what platform she uses to get rid of the tickets. We do have a lot of family members that will use them, so that's kind of family and friends will be kind of our first, way to try to get rid of the tickets. But then after that, there's some games that we just need to try to sell them. Now, Neil has been making it back to more games the past couple of years, and so when him and his brother Mark make their way back to Green Bay, then I almost certainly have to make my venture up from Madison, so the tickets aren't getting sold. To tailgate with Neil and Mark is a good time for sure.
And even last year, Neil, we had a hard time moving those Christmas Day tickets for you too.
Christmas Day that was a special situation. I can't stand the Christmas Day games, and I'm glad this year's Christmas Day game is at least on the road rather than in Green Bay, because that's miserable.
So talking about road games, we wanted to pick a road game to go to, and Miami was one of the ones we thought about because we knew the opponents. We've always known who the opponents were going to be. Putting this schedule together was the missing piece of the puzzle. Taking a look at that Miami game now, Sunday, December 25th at noon. How likely are you to want to go to the Miami game now for Christmas Day? Neil's got a big goose egg up there, yeah, right? Although being in Florida for Christmas isn't terrible, right?
If we didn't have as many other road games to go to this year, I mean, Tampa Bay in September actually would be pretty nice to go to. Mm-hmm. I like Florida a lot, except in July and August, but September, it's starting to become reasonable. I love being in the water. I love the ocean or the bayside. Definitely Tampa Bay is something that I could see as a reasonable road trip game. But what I'm concerned about as far as the schedule is concerned related to that is how we're starting the schedule actually, given that we're going to be trying to figure out our line, given that we've got a young receiving core and we're going to try to figure it out. At Vikings, Bears, and at Tampa Bay is a tough start to the schedule. And I have some concern that this could end up being, and then Patriots like after that, it could be a 1-2 start to the schedule, because I think the Buccaneers have less oiling that they need to do of their machine compared to the Packers. And having a couple of easy games to start out would be really a lot preferable. And then, we can build into the bulk of the schedule, but not a great start as far as Packers fans are concerned.
Well, another way to look at this too, though, is that if the defense, again, early in the year, if the offense is taking a little bit, to get going, again, the defense hopefully will be better faster, so to speak. So again, if you can, get to Brady early and often, he's gonna suck. And it'll be interesting to see, as he's coming back, he retired, he's back. It's proven that if you can rattle him early on, you might have some success. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is the defense. That game, even though you get 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, that might be like a 10-7 game. Mark it down, right? It just could be a big defensive battle, because neither offense may not be able to do anything, because the defenses will be better at that point than the offenses early in the season, and probably overall both defenses are better than the offenses.
Save for the London game, Green Bay really wasn't going to put a lot of road miles on this year either. The only game west of the Mississippi and it's by what, 6 blocks, Jeff? The only games
It's
west
not
of the
far,
Mississippi
literally, yeah.
is
Minneapolis. Yeah.
Sunday, the very first game, Sunday the 11th in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Every game after that is west of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
And it kind of, itinerary wise makes it an interesting schedule. Neil, going back to our plan for a road trip, we wanted to do Buffalo, but I think you're telling us that that's not going to work now, huh?
I said nothing of the sort. I'm excited about Buffalo.
Yeah, I didn't say anything.
I said nothing of the sort. It's a Sunday night football game. And, yes, that introduces some complications, but I certainly can schedule a different type.
It does not eliminate it.
It does not eliminate it. So, and Buffalo is an easy enough drive for me to get to. We'll be traveling back on Monday. That's not a big deal. So I am really excited about that Buffalo Bills game. The Bills Mafia are legendary fans as far as their passion for the game. A Sunday night game, they will be in about as legendary a form as they can be.
Drinking all day.
Given that they can tailgate the entire day. So I think that we are going to get the full Buffalo Bills fan experience for that game. And I'm really excited about that game in particular and making it up to whatever Ralph Wilson Stadium is called nowadays.
And it's Halloween weekend too, Neil.
Yeah, and it's Halloween weekend too. So add a little bit of more revelry to an already raucous crowd.
Tickets are on sale, Jeff. Let's get that booked, okay?
Well, we will talk offline. No, we will definitely.
I mean, it's an October game too, so you're not going to have to worry about weather. It may be slightly cool, but it should be very pleasant from a weather perspective. And yeah, with the Sunday night game, we can basically enjoy the entire weekend up in the greater Buffalo metropolitan area. So I think it's kind of perfect for all of those things.
So you bring up the Bills Mafia, and we know tailgating in Buffalo is pretty good, right? So that I want to tell a story about when Buffalo was in Green Bay. This would have been 4 years ago. You guys are familiar with our tailgate party, Lot 1, right? And for the home games this year, we don't have Lot 1. We're going to be in Lot 9. But this was the Buffalo game. So my friend Scott, who kind of puts together he runs our show there in Lot 1. He and I ended up actually staying out there for the whole game. Usually he leaves by halftime, but it was a nice day. Early in the season, we stayed out there. And after the game, we're kind of cleaning up and we had a card table by us. And we saw a few Buffalo fans over there standing there. They were looking at us talking and they started pulling their money out of their pockets. And Scott goes, "Hold on a second. I know what this is about." He walks over to them, starts talking to them, and they pass him some money. And he walks towards me. They grab the table to walk away. Scott comes walking to me and goes, "I have no idea whose table that is, but I just sold it for $40.
So, and John, what did they do with said table?
So they have those concrete standards just in the middle of the whole walkway there. They brought it over, because the standards like the platform's like 4 feet off the ground.
At the United Gate, you're talking about.
At the United Gate, yep. They put that card table right next to it. 2 guys got up on that platform and jumped right onto that card table. And the one guy missed it. I thought he broke his knee. I thought he cranked his knee right off. But yeah, then they propped the table back up and probably a good 10, 12 people kept trying to do that. So that table took a beating.
Scott had $40.
Well, no, we eventually figured out whose table it was. And Scott said, "Oh, I sold it to him for $20 here."
You better hope that they don't watch this. They'll come back like, "You fuckers, you owe us $20.
He already knows the whole story. He already knows it. I have no idea whose table that is.
So and maybe we'll learn this. Why do they do that with tables? What's the thing with that? I mean, I'm not, it's not good or bad. Just what the hell?
I think for the size of the Buffalo fans, it's definitely bad. It's remarkable that more people don't die as a result of this or suffer permanent debilitating injuries. Yes, exactly.
Compound fracture injuries because it's always done sober.
Well, I was just going to say there's a lot of liquid courage involved in this as well, Jeff.
Yeah, but how much? I mean, seriously, jumping off of something onto a card table. I mean,
hey, it makes for great TikTok videos, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a fact-finding mission. I mean, or Neil, you're a scientist. We could do some a hypothesis. We could come in. We could
I will watch from afar and be horrified, I'm sure, the entire time. So,
So
but
it almost makes bringing like an extra table worthwhile. Maybe, we could sell a table.
See who you can sell it to for $40, right?
what I'm doing is bringing good telephoto lenses so I can get some video to really see this in full form. I'm amazed by the entire concept of doing this.
All right.
So the other thing we get, of course, is that with the Sunday night game, that gives us a lot of opportunity to try a lot of different types of buffalo wings, right? There's a whole buffalo wing trail in Buffalo where people, decide between all of the different places, the original and all of the other places that started out. And I've had wings at 3 different places in Buffalo. They're all very different. And wings are always good. So this sounds like it may not be the height of cuisine, but it is something that will certainly be enjoyable.
It'll sustain us.
It's a football weekend. Yeah. Wings and beer in Buffalo, right?
That's right.
So Chris, how many games are you going to get up to this year? What's your tailgating plan for this Packer season, looking at the schedule, knowing what your other obligations are?
Yeah, I think I'm going to probably make it up. Well, I always count on having the December and January games because nobody else wants to go to those. We'll count those 3.
Right.
Cowboys, I think, are always intriguing, coming into Lambeau and, with Mike McCarthy coming back. That's a 3:25 game. That's a great game to go to.
That's also a game that sounds like Mark and I would very much be interested in going to. It's a week before hunting season. We can go up and do a little bit of scouting. And then we don't have a game on the opening weekend of hunting season as well. So you don't have to worry about people skipping out of the woods to watch football. So
yeah, I could see myself skipping out on the Jets game to give the people that want to go to the noon game early in the season an opportunity to go to the game. So
Chris, you can say it. You're going to let the elderly people go to that game.
I'll let the elderly go to that one. And then that Bears game on, the home opener on the 18th of September against the Bears, Sunday Night Football. You almost have to go to that one. So
yeah.
I see myself going to 5 of the games plus anything that happens in terms of a home playoff game.
So
nice.
that home playoff game part is interesting, right? Because we already have 2 January home games that are scheduled, right, with the Vikings and the Lions. And so if we were to have hopefully 2 Packers home playoff games as well, we have the possibility of 4 January home games in Lambeau Field.
No, or would it be 3 and no, I suppose not a February game.
No, because
2 weeks before.
Yeah, and we talked about that last year, that the seed to have is the 2 seed, because you get the possibility of 2 home games in a row and just the revenue stream from that. But boy, are we going to be tired if we do 4 weeks in a row for home games. The other thing though, Chris, that December game against the Rams, that's a Monday night game though too. Boy, I don't know, that just sounds miserable, a Monday night in December for a football game. I know the night games are a little bit more electric when you're in there, but I don't know if I like Monday night.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It's the Rams. It's the Super Bowl champions.
Super Bowl champions.
Super Bowl champions, yeah.
You're going to make something work for that. So take a Monday afternoon off, get up there, enjoy the game, and then I'll stay over at Neil's parents' place in Green Bay and cruise back to Madison Tuesday morning. So
there you go. See, if you can do it, anybody can do it, Chris.
And it's a lot easier to do that, come in for the late game, spend the night, than it is to try to get up early and get into town for a noon game, right? Because you got to be here. You'd have to leave by 6 a.m. usually.
Yeah, normally I'm leaving pretty early, but there's a few of those games, and I'm passing up the only noon opportunity. So I guess I don't really have to worry about that until 20.
You're being benevolent.
until 2023.
So the other thing that for the schedule for me living out on the East Coast is that it's a very good year for me going to road playoff games, right? So last year I went to the game in Baltimore. And so this year I've got at Washington and at FedEx Field and at the Eagles. And both of those, the Eagles game is a Sunday night game. That should be a lot of fun, although my safety is in peril going back to parking after a Sunday night game in particular. But, I hate the fans at the link, but on the other hand, it is a great atmosphere. It's not a great atmosphere for football, but there are a lot of passionate fans there. I guess that's the positive way to state it.
Just buy a cheap Eagles jersey so that after the game you can just throw that on and walk to your car like
Yeah,
reasonably?
my general solution for a game like that has been to wear a blaze orange jacket, because there are plenty of people who wear blaze orange in Philadelphia as well. So it's
Really?
it's completely neutral. There are a lot of people. It's
Or
completely neutral.
the Reggie White jersey as well.
The
right?
Reggie White jersey.
Yeah,
I
that's true, yeah.
haven't purchased that yet, but that is certainly one that has been on my list for a while, because yes, that is one that Eagles fans will see a Reggie White jersey. And I do the same with Eagles fans wearing Reggie White jersey. And there's just sort of a smile that's associated with that.
A detente.
Yes. And Washington, right? That game is thankfully a 1 o'clock game at FedEx Field, because the FedEx Field is the worst stadium to get to by any sort of reasonable thing. Dan Snyder has basically made it so there's no reasonable parking anywhere nearby. You're paying, $60 for some parking that's going to be terrible. Getting there by the metro, it's about a mile away from the metro station, and the metro closes in DC at certain time. But for a Sunday afternoon game, I'll be able to just take the metro to and from the game, so I don't have to worry about parking there.
Knocking things around here. The schedule in general, we knew, like we said, we knew what the teams were going to be. Now we know all the where and the when. The bye again in week 14. Opening up in Minnesota on the road. Finishing, well, second to last game, Minnesota coming here, Detroit coming here. 6th time in 7 years, I think it was, that we're finishing the season with pretty much a meaningless game with Detroit. Why is there no imagination amongst the NFL schedule makers? Why are they
So
not moving
Detroit
this
can
along?
get a W.
A chance to win a game? Yeah.
Yeah, a game. So it boosts their one loss record. That's a good question. It's why wouldn't they schedule the Patriots game or the Eagles game or something? I don't know.
I understand doing a division opponent at the end of the year, but boy, aren't we tired of seeing Detroit to finish the season? I don't know. Well, it should be.
I don't think
a win,
Detroit's tired of it, because like I said,
No.
usually that win means a win because we're resting most of our starters.
We're resting starters. Yeah.
Yeah. One other,
Might
go
be
ahead.
A little tougher. I think that they had a lot of good pieces. They had some good playmakers that they were starting to see. I think they had a pretty decent draft as well. And so I feel like Detroit might, have a little bit of a rise where they might, be hanging out closer to 500.
Jared Goff.
A couple
Jared Goff.
seasons here. And I think that, that game is, in Detroit is always a tough one for us, no matter what their record is.
The other thing about the
something.
Detroit game, though, is that it might mean something, because again, only the number 1 seed gets the first round bye, and you still are going to want that. And I'm hoping that by that point of the season, we're going to be playing for it. And I doubt we will have it locked in place like we did last year. So it's a game that very much could be significant as far as where we end up in the playoffs and who we face in the playoffs.
13 wins in each of the last 3 seasons. Neil, what's your over under on this season for wins?
Ooh.
That's a tough call. I should have gone through the schedule game by game. I am not really happy about the Vikings, Buccaneers, and Bills road games. I don't feel wildly confident about those. I don't feel great about playing the Titans on the Thursday night. At the Eagles is always a difficult game. I don't think we're going to sweep the division this year. And I don't think we're going to be 13-4. Let me just say that. I think that 11-6 is probably a reasonable way to end up the year, especially given that we're going to have to take time to find ourselves as far as our offense is concerned.
All right. So you're going over under at 10.5 or 11.5?
I'm going over under. Let's set the over and under at 10.5 is a reasonable number. I'm going.
And you're
over.
picking the over?
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, what do you think? More than
Great minds
11
think
or what?
alike. I was down around 11 as well. I think probably finished strong, but it'll be interesting to see too, because we kind of ran last year, other than, obviously if everybody's healthy, which is huge, but yeah, I think some of the games this year, unless somehow they get their stride and the defense is just so dominant, but I don't see 13-4 again. I mean, great, obviously. But I'm thinking, over 11, maybe super optimistic 12. Other schedules again, what is it gonna be the number 1 seed? Is it gonna be 11? Is it gonna be 12? It's gonna be 13. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 12.
all right. Chris, what do you like?
I also like 12. I was thinking about a number. It seems like, pulling off 13 another season just seems like, too big of a task with our wide receiver situation. But we do have a new special teams coach, so I'm enthusiastic about that we probably won't lose a game.
So hopefully we could rename the ass hats back to special teams, by the way, as well. Just,
Right.
Yeah, I
hope
guess they
springs
haven't gotten to
eternal in
that
the off
designation
season,
quite
right?
yet.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm also going to go with 12. I think there is going to be some hiccups out of the gates. We've seen that before with, Packers teams, and this might be one of those teams where we have some question marks at the beginning of the season, and is this wide receiver core going to come through? But in true Packer fashion, somebody always seems to step up in that wide receiver core. You think of the game that Alan Lazard had against the Saints a few years back when Devontae Adams.
Like, where did that come from?
Just an incredible game. I've heard some good things about Amari Rodgers, how he's progressing, and hopefully he steps up in year 2, and he's kind of a forgotten man. He wasn't a superstar in his first season, so then you automatically write him off. But I'm hoping that maybe we see some good progression out of him. And then it's those rookie receivers, getting them comfortable, and Rodgers getting comfortable, working through that process. How long does that take? Hopefully there's a couple surprises with those draft picks that we got.
Good surprise.
I think with the consistency in our coaching and now the defense, I think I like the defense a lot and what we're doing there. It's a 10-win team at a minimum. So yeah, I'm solid at 11 because I think there's a couple of home games, probably the 3 home games where that Lambeau mystique may not come into play. Yep, you're looking at maybe the Patriots game, the Tennessee game on the short turnaround, and then that Rams game Monday night. Those could be the 3 toughest home games that they'll see this year. So yeah, I like 11. I like an 11 win. 11-6 sounds good for me as well.
A lot of consensus. So, looking at the Packer, the other thing we haven't talked about is strength of schedule. And so as it turns out, our strength of schedule for opponents is 478. Now, strength of schedule, I think, means less in the NFL than it does in other leagues, just because there's so much up and down between the teams year to year. So the good news is it's a 478 strength of schedule, which is good. But every other team in the NFC North also has a strength of schedule below 500. And that's actually partly related to us having the Lions on the schedule twice. But the fact of the matter is that it's not going to be an easy ride as far as the NFC North is concerned, in my view. And I think that there are possibilities for all of those teams to do it. And, not having to play the Rams, not having to play the Cowboys for those other teams in the North is the sort of thing that this might be the year that actually makes a difference.
When you talk about in the division, though, yeah, the division opponents should have 14 common opponents between them. There's only really 3 other games that kind of make that difference. So the strength of schedule, I mean, the way the NFL schedule has been done for the last 20 years, I understand why they look at the strength of schedule argument just to have something to talk about, but maybe within the conference it means something, but within the division, the 4 teams in the division are playing almost all the same teams. So the strength of schedule, I think conversation goes out the window because of that. And when you look at how you're assessing that, it's based on last year's record.
The prior year. So
it's not last year's team anymore.
Right.
And so that strength of schedule is going to change as the year goes on when you look at how the teams perform in this season. We have the advantage of we get to play the NFC East and and half of the AFC East that have been kind of doormats for a while. So we have that advantage, and then we've got the Lions and the Bears to look at a couple of times too. Right. So yeah, I understand that argument, but teams get better, teams play differently, weather comes into play, injuries come into play. All that is more of a factor to me than what last year's record was. Well, Jeff, you want to get us out of here and give us our brief history moment?
Yeah, I was going to say, so Chris, you mentioned before we started chatting, you look forward to the history. So it's just going to be really quick this episode. So believe it or not, with the release of the schedule, and we've known about this for a little bit now, that with the Packers playing the Giants in London, it will be their first regular season game not played in the United States, so played internationally. So every other team has played internationally but the Packers. Now, a few years back, the Packers did play a preseason game in Canada. I believe it was in Winnipeg. But this will be the first time that they're actually playing abroad. So we're making history this year, and that's tonight's history recap.
Something that I'm pretty sure will have its own section when the new media guide comes out. I look forward to grabbing that when it comes out here in the preseason. But yeah, in 100, more than 100 years now.
Yeah.
You'd think even back in the old barnstorming days, they would have played a Canadian game or something like that. But no, this is our first overseas trip. Pretty exciting stuff. All right, you guys, anything before we get out of here? Chris, any parting shots for us?
I think you guys are doing a great job with this podcast. I've really enjoyed it. All the episodes. Little do you guys know that I had a number of podcasts to catch up on, and I was doing some work out in the Grand Canyon a couple back, and on draft day I was working my way back to Phoenix, and I was a little under the weather, actually quite under the weather for that drive, and your podcast carried me through that drive back.
Awesome.
I really appreciate
full disclosure, we didn't pay you to say that.
I know.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate everybody who tunes in. Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Jeff, Neil, anything else?
The schedule's out. We'll revisit this. Like I said, hope springs eternal in the off season. So looking forward to, looking at this a little more. It's different, obviously, than the draft with speculation and things like that. I feel so. We'll look forward to what the season brings and things like that. We didn't talk about the preseason because there's a couple interesting games in there as well, including Kansas City. So
Jeff, there are never any interesting games in the preseason. You're wrong about that.
Well, the fact of the matter is, yeah, that's true. But no, so just looking forward to a great season. And Chris, it was great having you on tonight. And
thanks for inviting me.
Forward to a great season.
Chris, thanks for stopping by.
So my parting thought is that this is, Jeff, you've mentioned this inflection point concept, and I think that we're going to learn a lot about Matt LaFleur's coaching style this year and how it's going to transition. We're going to see that we talked about as far as the defense in the early games. Is the defense going to be able to carry us? How are we going to adjust to the new players? And this is a season that, we were all basically all in the 11-6 range as far as where we thought the team could go. But I could easily see us going into a 14-3 if we start to go on a run. I don't think that's out of play, but I also look at the schedule and look at all the games that I consider to be potentially tough games. And I could also see us struggling to make the playoffs. And it's going to depend on a lot of variables, obviously, but I think I've got more doubt about as far as the range of where we're going to end up this year than I have in several years. And we're going to have to go to the games we can and yell as loud as we can and hope everything comes together for the team.
Well, Neil, that's why they play the games on the field too, right? These aren't.
Thank you, Mr.
We're not going to the Super Bowl off of a piece of paper. We're not the Minnesota Vikings, right, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Get information on the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat on Twitter and on Facebook at the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And as always, may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.